Hey, church family, I wanted to take this opportunity to present you with another word of encouragement as we continue to pray about the outcome of this election. Now, as we continue to draw closer and closer to the January 6th date when the president-elect will be officially identified by our Congress, we continue hearing more and more about the growing amount of evidence which points to foreign interference during the 2020 election. As a matter of fact, the Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, he recently confirmed the fact that there was foreign interference in the 2020 election. Director Ratcliffe, he oversees 17 intelligence agencies, and he explicitly stated this, that there was foreign interference by China, Iran, and Russia in November of this year. And seeing how he's the man who has access to the most highly classified information that's held by the U.S. government, well, listen, those who insist that there was no foreign interference in this election, they're actually guilty of spreading misinformation. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence has also confirmed that the intelligence community has received relevant reporting about foreign threats from the recent election. And listen, there's so much evidence of foreign interference during the 2020 election that Director Ratcliffe is actually unable to produce his report, which is due today. You know, according to Executive Order 13848, this is the executive order that Trump signed back in 2018 regarding foreign interference in elections. Listen, the Director of National Intelligence is expected, according to that executive order, to deliver a report about any foreign interference in the election within 45 days after the conclusion of the United States election. Well, here we are. It's 45 days after the November election. And while it's true that Director Ratcliffe has confirmed the fact that there was foreign interference in this election, it's also true that he's unable to meet this deadline, and the reason why is because, well, several agencies in the intelligence community have not yet finished coordinating on the report. Now, we should take a moment to ask, what's keeping our intelligence agencies from meeting today's deadline? Well, I can imagine two separate scenarios. The first of which is that there's just so much evidence of foreign interference that they're overwhelmed and they're unable to quantify and categorize all of the data within this amount of time. If that's the case, well, Director Ratcliffe ought to go ahead and advise President Trump that there's enough evidence right now to begin enacting the sanctions of the 2018 executive order. The second scenario, though, is this, that the intelligence agencies that are unable to meet today's deadline, they're actually obstructing the investigation in order to stall the report until after the 45-day deadline. If that's the case, well, Director Ratcliffe ought to go ahead and advise President Trump that our intelligence agencies have been compromised, and therefore there's currently enough evidence to begin enacting the sanctions of the 2018 executive order. Now, if you're thinking that this is a false dichotomy, well, I would ask you this. How long would it take for our intelligence agencies to produce a report that says zero foreign interference in the election? That's a report that's easily created. Listen, if there's zero evidence of foreign interference in the 2020 election, that's a report that can easily be written within 45 days. And so therefore, it only stands to reason that there's either an overwhelming amount of evidence or that there are intelligence agencies who are obstructing this investigation because, well, my guess, they're guilty of collusion. Either way, the logical conclusion is this, that there must be an overwhelming amount of evidence of foreign interference in this election. Not only that, but there's also an incredible amount of evidence that the total amount of voter irregularities from the 2020 election was actually sufficient enough to swing the outcome of the election. To prove my point, I encourage you to consider the 36-page report written by the Director of the Office of Trade and Manufacturing Policy. His name is Peter Navarro. I'm going to drop a link to this 36-page report in the description of this video. But for now, I will simply direct your attention to a summary of his assessment. According to Navarro, there are clear patterns of election irregularities that are so consistent across the 6 battleground states that they suggest a coordinated strategy to, if not steal the election, strategically game the election process in such a way as to unfairly tilt the playing field in favor of the Biden-Harris ticket. Now, that's quite a claim. Navarro is making a huge claim here, and yet, if you read through his report, he claims to lay out all of the available evidence which will show how the 6 key battleground states actually engaged in 6 dimensions of voting irregularities, which include, and I list them, outright voter fraud, ballot mishandling, contestable process fouls, Equal Protection Clause violations, voting machine irregularities, and a significant statistical anomalies. And now, listen, each of these categories in and of themselves aren't enough to alter the outcome of the election. And yet Peter Navarro goes on to describe the totality of these irregularities as being more than sufficient to swing the outcome of the election. Now, I realize that there are many in the mainstream media who insist that all of this is rooted in nothing more than conspiracy theories, and they accuse conservatives of creating conspiracy theories. And yet I would ask them to explain, why then was there a recent examination of the Dominion voting system software, which was used in Anne Arundel County, Michigan, and this examination, this forensic audit showed an almost 70% error rate, which according to the auditors was clearly part of the design of this system. The audit report prepared by Allied Securities Operations Group put it like this, and I quote, "We conclude that the Dominion voting system is intentionally and purposefully designed with inherent errors to create systemic fraud and influence election results." Wow. Are we to believe that the auditors from the Allied Security Operations Group who examined the Dominion voting system software, that they're conspiring with President Trump to overturn the results of this election? Is that what we're supposed to believe? Should we conclude that Director Peter Navarro and Director John Ratcliffe are conspiring together with Trump in order to stop Biden and Harris from taking their rightful place in the White House? Is this what we're supposed to believe? If so, then it should be noted that there then are currently 2 competing conspiracy theories. That's right. There must be 2 competing conspiracy theories. We can either, on the one hand, believe that the outcome of the 2020 election was altered by foreign interference and local corruption, or we can believe that corrupt conservatives are making unfounded accusations in order to accomplish a coup. The fact is, most people in America believe that one of these statements is true. Therefore, we need to stop accusing one another of creating conspiracy theories. Because whoever is believing the statement that's false, they're the ones that have embraced a conspiracy theory. So listen, both sides could potentially be, embracing a conspiracy theory at this very point in time. Therefore, let's stop, accusing one another of creating conspiracy theories, and let's simply examine the evidence. Let's examine the evidence so that we can embrace the truth. I also encourage you, Christian, let's pray for our Congress, that they might have the wisdom that's needed to examine all of this evidence as they convene on January the 6th. And let's pray that they have the wisdom that they need to deal with the objections of those who are convinced that the outcome of this election was affected by the interference of foreign governments. And let's pray that they'll have the courage, that they might have the courage to take a stand for truth as they announce the winner of the 2020 election. And with that, I encourage every Christian, once again, let's remember that God has a providential plan which is going to benefit every believer. He's going to work all these things together for the good of those who love him, those who are called according to his purpose. And with that, I encourage you, let's continue fighting the good fight of faith, all for the glory of God.